There we go. Wonderful. Wonderful. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome everybody to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host, Samantha Studebaker-Carl, and today we are talking about Chapter 5 of The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. And I always try and have my book ready to hold up. Oh, The Slight Edge, and then everybody has kind of a different version because I guess this is the updated version, and Dan's got a little bit older version. But anyway, our topic is, the most powerful force in the universe. I thought there for a second. And but before we get going, I want to just let you guys know, if you're watching this as a recording, that you can connect with us on our Facebook group. There'll be a link below the video. You can watch replays. You can add your thoughts to the conversation below the video, whatever you're talking about. But before we do, let's give everybody an opportunity to introduce themselves, and then we will get this chat going. Jump out, guys.
Good morning. I'll hop out. Sandy Root here in my beach. Beautiful sunny day, and most of the trees are up by now. Still some piles down, but it's looking like Miami Beach again, and green and shiny.
Good morning, it's Catherine Clement in Boulder, Colorado, and I moved since last week, so I'm in a different position here, and it's much better in here for me where I'm at. I have a better signal and things like that, so excited to be in my new digs, excited to be here. Unfortunately, I didn't get to read the chapter, so I have no idea what we're talking about, but that's okay.
Dan Sissick in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I too am guilty of not having read the chapter yet, although I've read 4, so I kind of have an idea, but I thought it was the quantum leap myth. That's what my book says, so totally different title, but looking forward to this. And so Sandy, you guys have kind of stepped out of your shower and you're all off and cleaned up and everything and looking spanking new, huh?
And good morning, I'm Karen Lohoff in the Phoenix surrounds the East Valley of the Sun, and it's so much more enjoyable when the sun is tamed down just a little bit. I don't remember a September under 3 degrees, and the last couple of weeks, or last week and a half, tolerable, very, very, very tolerable. And what's really, really nice is when the mornings are cool, like, before the sun comes up, and I can step outside and do a couple of things and just look around and feel a little bit of a coolness on my skin. So looking forward to this morning.
Awesome, guys. I'm so glad to have you all here. And Christopher's here as well with us, but I don't think he has audio. I think he's just listening and watching today. But we're going to have everybody here. And yeah, Dan, when you mentioned the quantum leap, it does say something about that in chapter 6 in my book. And I know you have a different version than I have. And I think that I'm wondering if he completely reorganized the book in this version. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Chapter 5 says the quantum leap, and I have the same version, I think, as Dan.
Right. And I have this other version that, and chapter 6 says don't fall for the quantum leap, and chapter 5 says slow to go fast. So I don't know how. I mean, it sounds to me like the versions are significantly different in a lot of ways, because it seems like last week when you read some of the points from the chapter, that it didn't match up exactly with what mine was saying. So I guess it doesn't really matter as long as we're covering all the topics. So I don't know. I mean, for me, this one was talking about doing the small actions over a long period of time, and that your ally is time. Does that sound familiar to you guys?
No, I'll just go like from the very first page in here. It says the
Uh-huh.
quantum leap myth says someday when my ship comes in, someday when I have the money, someday when I have the time, someday when I have the skill, the confidence. Then how many of those statements have you said to yourself? Have I got some shocking news for you? Someday doesn't exist, never has, and never will. There's someday. There's only today.
Yeah, and I'm seeing that in chapter 6 in this one instead of in chapter 5.
Was that time one from chapter 3? That time you said something about time. Didn't we do that in chapter 3? I'm so confused.
Well, and it looks like you call the same version, and I'm the one with the oddball version, right?
Well, no, I mean,
Because like on mine, this one says in chapter 6, don't fall for the quantum leap. And then on the second page, it has those someday, someday, someday statements. But in my chapter 5, it taught, so you walk a little today, get your heart rate up a bit, you lift a few weights, you eat differently, then tomorrow morning you wake up and look in the mirror and see the same old flubber. You'll have to be pretty well along the path to see any significance to the results. That's what you see in your 5?
Yeah, I have
Okay.
the version
no,
what mine says.
Right. So I guess when he redid or updated or whatever the books, he reorganized the chapters too. So, oh well. I guess it doesn't really matter. Since I read the chapter anyway, I'm going to read the points from my version. Okay, so the essential points of my chapter 5 is time is the force that magnifies those simple daily disciplines into massive success. There is a progression to success: plant, cultivate, and harvest. And then the central step, cultivate, can only happen over the course of time. No genuine success in life is instant. Life is not a clickable link. To grasp how the slight edge works, you have to view actions through the eyes of time. And then difficult takes a little time, but impossible just takes a little bit longer. And, I love that one that says difficult takes a little time and impossible just takes a little bit longer, and I feel like the network marketing industry, we're taught a lot about that, the aspect of those little daily actions are what add up and create that success over time. And then who is it that says something to the effect of, what was it I wrote down? I wrote a little thing down. It says, who says that if you just keep trying, eventually you're going to achieve? Maybe that was in Think and Grow Rich, something along that. It's not exactly that quote, but it's basically stating that if you keep going, eventually you're going to create in your life. Whereas if you quit, or the only quitter or the only failures are the people who quit. Something like that. Because if you're trying to make something happen in your life, and you don't see results in like 2 seconds and you quit, then obviously you're going to be a failure in that. But if you are trying to create some kind of a result in your life and you keep trying and you keep going and you keep going, even if it's just little minuscule things, that eventually you're going to reach that success. How many light bulb ideas did Einstein go through before he had a success? Thousands. And if he'd have quit after 999, he would have been a failure. But since he kept on going and he kept trying new ones, is that eventually he found the right one. And that's kind of like the biggest key, I think, to this chapter is just that compounding effect. And of course, we talked about that a little bit in the last chapter too. But that he brings up an example in my version of the chapter that says, if you look at the Grand Canyon, or you look at a little rivulet of water after it's rained on your patio, and you see that little rivulet, and it's like, it doesn't really seem like it's doing anything, but yet the Grand Canyon started out as a little rivulet that just kept on going for millions of years, and look at how massive of a result that it got. It's that whole compounding effect. And if we think about, he says, you got to really tap into the aspect of realizing or knowing knowing with absolute certainty, if you just keep going, that's when you're going to get that result. Just like if you walk into a room and it's dark in there, you don't sit there and give yourself a pep talk about turning on the light switch. You just turn it on because you know it's going to work. You don't have to sit there telling yourself, oh, well, if I do it, or if I try it, or I this or that. There is none of that. You just know it's going to work, so you do it. And that's what he's trying to get at with this in this chapter, is you just do it because you know it's going to work, even though it's the time that it's that compounding effect that is what creates your success. I don't know, what do you guys think?
That reminds me of what you were saying in the beginning about how people tend to give up right before they're going to have that success. I read a book, and you probably heard of it, 3 Feet from Gold. I think it's part of the Napoleon Hill Foundation books. And I think, they say similar things in that, like, don't give up, because it's usually right at that point when you're ready to give up, when you're 3 feet from gold. And I guess that book started from a story of these miners who were digging, finding their gold, and they quit literally 3 feet from the spot because someone else came later and found the gold. So, and imagine, finding that out and kicking yourself in the butt later, like, I was 3 feet from it.
Well, I was going to say, now in looking at my book, I think my, Sandy, yours and mine, I think we have to look at chapter 4 where it says you have to start with a penny, talking about like the compounding effect. And how, if you start with a penny and double it and keep doubling it, you can kind of, really, and I think that's kind of a little bit of what you were just talking about, Samantha, that, it is those little day-to-day things that, once you start doing them and that you get that habit of doing them, they become, routine, and they become part of the memory of what you do every day. Like they talk about memory loss and stuff when you don't, when you're not playing sports regularly and stuff and doing things, on a basis, unless once you get back into doing it, then your muscles and stuff tend to remember those things and build back up again. So it's kind of the same thing with, your skills and your stuff and things like that. If you don't keep on top of them and keep doing them, and then, you get into the old ways and you don't do things because you fall into the old mindset. So therefore, you do, like Sandy was saying, you do a lot of times quit at 3 feet before gold, because you haven't built up enough inside of you to always keep going, knowing that eventually someday you're going to reach the goal, even if by default, it's kind of like, I think what they're saying, like Think and Grow Rich, 3 feet from gold, is, by default you'll get there, but just never stop. And that's kind of what I get out of that, and that just, don't quit, That's what I really get out of a lot of that.
Well, I think that a lot of people go into network marketing, or at least I did, with somewhat of an employee attitude instead of a business owner attitude. And as an employee, I worked 12 hours and I got paid for 12 hours. And I think, as people who are really business owners understand that you don't typically make any profit on a business for the first year, 2 years, maybe even 3 years. They just kind of go into it knowing that they have to have a certain amount of money to carry through whatever. And but with network marketing, it's really different, and you have to put forth a lot of these, a lot of effort. You can do it, it's better to do a little bit every day and just be really consistent. But what I found is after, I can't tell you how many times I almost quit. And some things I did quit. Some things I just didn't feel good about sharing or whatnot. I just quit. Other things I felt good about sharing, as far as I wasn't, it wasn't that I disliked the business or anything, but I don't know, maybe I was focused on something else or whatnot, and they didn't do well. the thing about network marketing is you get out of it what you put into it, and what I found now is that pretty much just like a regular business, now after 2 or 3 years of being consistent, people are starting to contact me instead of me constantly having to go out and contact other people. So it really does just take, those daily, simple, consistent actions, people seeing you. I'm in several opportunities. So I know that's quote against the rules, you're only supposed to be in one or whatever, but I've been in one that went, out of business overnight, and suddenly I had 0. I was like, okay, we're not doing that again. So yes, I am in multiple opportunities, although I do primarily focus on one as far as recruiting and stuff. But actually, I have programs from very low dollar entry to very high dollar entry, and that way I can help pretty much anybody that comes my way, depending on what their interest and how much money they have. And I think it just, because I work with a lot of people in Africa and places in other countries where they don't have some of the same opportunities that we have here, and so they need something lower entry over there. And but yeah, you have to get out of that employee mindset, and I love that light switch analogy. I really do. Because you just have to know it's going to work. And to bring it down to something much more personal and recent and relevant, I'm still in process of moving today. When I get off work today, because I'm double dutying right now, I get off at 4. I have to go finish cleaning, the old place, and then I'm done. But everything is pretty much moved now. This is the first time, if you know kind of my story, I've been out of pocket for a while, as far as physically and stuff. And like the last time I moved, my daughter and my son-in-law were local, and so they, helped move me. And this is actually the first time I've had to move everything myself. And, I was looking at it, and even though it was just a, 12 by 12 room, it's about a 200-foot distance between where I needed to move. Thank God it was a short move, but still I was used to walking that 200 maybe once or twice a day, not like 180 times, because I can only carry so much, so so many times I was thinking, oh my God, I just can't do this. How am I going to do this? But I was just like, okay, take some more. I'm taking the stem cell stuff. I'm like, take some more of that, take some more omegas, take some more of this, take some kratom. Just keep moving. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other, man. Just keep, even if you can only carry one bag, just keep moving, and it'll get done. I know it will get done because I've been through enough moves before, right? And sure enough, even though it looked kind of like hopeless, it got done. So I'm sorry to be rambling on, but it is relevant. You just have to know that it's going to get done and it's going to work, and you just have to keep taking those actions. And it happens. And then suddenly you're on the other side of it and you're like, wow, it's almost like giving birth. It's like once you're done with it, it's pretty good. It's not so bad. You kind of forget some of the troubles and toils.
So see, you didn't stop from your 3 feet from gold.
That made me think of like the importance of having faith too. When we set those goals, like we have to really believe like in the product that we're selling or whatever it is. And it's like it's separate entity in a way, but we also have to embody it in a way at the same time. Like I'm thinking about my acupuncture practice, like as I'm growing it over the past year, it's like I'm seeing how much it's its own, like it's got its own thing going on, it's like really its own entity, but it's also, I really seeing where I have to embody it to be able to speak about it and draw people to it and have that faith, because it's easy when there's like a dry time, like when the hurricane hit, like that week I didn't have work obviously because I was out of town, and then when I came back, like the regulars were, things were sort of off track a little bit, and then those fears can come in when you're running a business like that. And but keeping that faith through everything will help you get through. Like you said, you know it's going to get done, and having that faith helps you, and having the right mindset helps. Because that reminded me of my move to Florida too. Like, I didn't know anything. I had no idea about really anything, but I had my vision statement. I knew exactly what I wanted, and I believed 1,000% that it was going to happen the way I wanted it. And it turned out way better than I even imagined, and was so serendipitous, like so flowing. And like, people are like, that moves are usually so difficult. And I'm like, no, they're not. Mine was so awesome. So.
I like what you said though about having to embody, what you're doing or what you're involved with too, and kind of allow it to have its life as you are building that and growing it and things like that. I've never looked at it in that point of view, that it's still a part of you, but you have to let it have its life and its breath and its stuff, but you still have to embody that, so that way you are able to carry it and grow it and do what you need to do to keep it moving forward. And I think that's the other thing a lot of people don't understand, is you have to, like some of the business, I'm like Catherine, I've been in several things, and right now I'm even been looking at something else. While even though I don't have a lot of money to be putting out there, it's still not hampering and slowing my desire down to find something that is what I'm wanting and will truly work. Because the one thing I thought I found and really liked and was kind of getting a little foothold going, it went bankrupt. So in that sense, it's like, what do I do there? But yeah, I don't think I've really never really ever embodied anything I've gotten involved with. And I don't know if that's because of my own fears, and I think that's partly what it is, and afraid of it knocking, rather than going in like you, where I go in my mind and really have it laid out that I'm going to give it everything, put everything into it, and embody it and let it embody me, so that way I can give it the best chance of life that it needs, so that way I can ultimately reach the dreams that I want. So I think that was a little learning lesson I just learned. And I know you've said it kind of before, but I think the way you said it this time just kind of like, wow, it just kind of hit me. And like, that makes sense, to embody it and let it be, so that way I can feed into it and let it grow and let it grow me.
I had an experience this week that I thought, well, I definitely feel like I learned a lot from it. I think it was night before last, I headed to the store, and I was in my son's car, and there's a lot of interesting aspects to that car. And so it was nice to get the car started and get headed over to the store. And I was praying that I could also, when I got out of the store, get the car started and head back home without incident. And I got out of the store, put some things in the one side, went around, got in the car, seat belted myself in, which I'm always reluctant to do. I would prefer to not ever have to wear a seatbelt. Got myself all geared up, put the key in the ignition, and the security alarm started going. Whoop, 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 whoop. That's one of the weird things that happens with that car. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh, geez, I'm in a busy parking lot. All these people are around, and I'm sitting here having to, hit the key fob and get the noise and so forth to go off, and trying to figure out what I did wrong. And it's exactly these kinds of little incidences that just really whang out my day. And I was sitting there thinking, I had been working with, for my book, the 10 Roles of Being Human. And one of those is that, we all have lessons. We're here for lessons. And another one is that we keep getting the lesson until we learn it, which is something I've always really hated. I mean, I don't like lessons. I don't like testing. I don't like any of that crap. And I was sitting there thinking, you know what, though? I really don't think the lesson is about figuring out the sequence of things that I have to do so that this doesn't happen. Although I think I did maybe figure out what the sequence was. But I'm sitting there thinking, first of all, I need to get out of the car. I mean, I had learned a lesson about rolling his windows down before. I wasn't going to do that. I'm sitting there in the car, and even though it's dark and it's 8:30 at night, with the windows up and no AC on, it was getting a little hot. Besides, I just needed to unwind a little bit, and I've got a problem that I've been dealing with my left leg, and so it's a little bit tricky to get the leg out of the car, especially if you can't open the door and somebody was next to me, and all these little things. So I was having to use my right hand to hold on to the damn key fob and just keep, stop, because it was just going. It would be quiet, and then as soon as I took my hand off, it was, wanging around again. So I managed to get out of the car. This guy that was collecting the cart said, kind of looked at me weirdly, is there something I can help you with? And I don't know if he thought I was really trying to steal the car or what the deal was. But anyway, I explained that this happened before. I didn't know why it happened. I was just trying to get a little distance, try it again. And got back in the car and had to sit for probably another half hour screwing around, trying to figure out what was going on. The next morning, when I was going through my morning routine, one of the things that I do is I go through my purposes. And I say purposes because I realized that in getting my major definite purpose together, that I was primarily doing a have purpose, and that there were be purposes and do purposes that I needed to have. So now I've got a bunch of purposes. And as I went through my purposes, actually the first purpose is to embrace positivity. And I always have a really hard time embracing positivity when I think I'm being tested, because I really want to rack on somebody about all I've had in my whole life. And so I was thinking, being positive during the test is like being, that man that was 3 feet from gold. Of course, they had lots of tests, and they had really run out of money and equipment and all that kind of stuff. I think what's interesting about him is that in the rest of his life, he did do something else, and he became extremely successful because he was always reminding himself how close he had come the first time. And so I was thinking, this is the lesson that these last tests have been about, is that I need to stay positive. I need to find a positive way, to stay positive during something that I consider a test, that I have no patience for, I don't want, and I need to keep going. So I hope that's helpful to somebody.
Yeah, it was, Catherine, and I like that you bring up your purposes, and that Sandy's bringing up embodying something, and then and I was also kind of thinking about what it talks about in this chapter about having a philosophy. And if we kind of look at the philosophy as embodying whatever it is we're trying to achieve, and that our purpose is that we are going to achieve that thing, even if it's something as simple as just being positive, or turning on a light switch, or moving, or getting the car to go. It's funny that you bring up the car, because I think even the most let's say this random person who thinks they can't achieve anything and thinks that the whole world is against them, and that, maybe they try things and they always quit and they never, whatever. Even that person, if they have a car and they have to get to some place, will do whatever it takes to make that happen, right? Because they know they're getting to that freaking store. or they're getting down to the corner to get their whatever, no matter what, they're making something, they're going to make that happen because they know that no matter what, they're getting there, right? And so if their car doesn't work, then they're calling somebody to help them fix it, or they're grabbing their husband to go out there and fix it, or they're, whatever it takes to get that car, to get them to go wherever it is that they're trying to go. Because they know that if they just get the car going, they'll get there, right? And so if we start kind of thinking about whatever it is that we're trying to achieve as we know it's going to happen, we just have to figure out what the steps are and recognize the things we did that didn't work, and then start trying different things until we do make it work. If we just know we're going to make it happen, then we're pretty much guaranteed success as long as we keep trying to make it happen. Oh, that's what came up for me when everybody was talking.
You guys, I've been watching, I haven't had much time to watch, but like when I do stop to eat, sometimes I'll just put on something to, watch while I'm eating, just to kind of unplug from everything else. So I found this new series on Netflix. Oh my God, never find a good series on Netflix when you're in the middle of the move, because it drives you crazy because you can't get back to it, right? So it's amazing. I didn't stop to eat 8 times a day now or something. I could have. But I don't know. I must have had a past life in medieval ages or something, because I really love sword play and, warrior shows. So this one is called Resurrection. And it's actually in Turkish, I believe. So there's subtitles, which means I can't leave it playing while I'm moving. I have to actually sit there and watch it, right? So that's why I do it while I'm eating. But it's amazing. I mean, you would think, what good is it to watch a show like that? I know business people who are like, no, I only, read books and, watch Tony Robbins and shit or whatever. But I have learned a lot from this show, actually. And one of the things that I love about it, and I'm not familiar with the Turkish culture, but this is supposedly based, historically, correctly, everything. I'm sure they embellish, but, on the Turkish culture and the way that they speak to each other. Almost every time they speak to each other, they bless the other person. And their language, whenever, people have doubts because shit's happening, and they're like, oh, what about this, and the other person comes back with one phrase that I really love, and I'll just use the brother because that's the sentence I remember, but it's my brother can overcome any obstacles. And they say that, whether it's my mother, my brother, my sister, our tribe, it's a tribe, it's a very community oriented thing. And if somebody's expressing doubts that somebody's going to attack them or whatever, they say, we can overcome any obstacles, or our tribe can overcome any obstacles. And I thought, that's a really good thing. That's a really good thing to say to yourself when you start having those doubts and those fears, and of course they're talking about being attacked by 800 warriors or something. So their situation is a little bit more dire than mine, but I mean, it works for me too. So don't feel bad about unplugging and watching some not necessarily business related stuff, because you can still learn some good lessons and some of that. Plus, they never give up. They never give up. It doesn't matter what they're being faced with. I mean, a dragon hasn't showed up yet, but if it did, they just take that baby on, they go for it. I love it.
Yeah, it's I like that you brought up the TV show, because in my version of the chapter, he brings up the movies and how we kind of get this idea in our head that, we can have success just like they do in a 2-hour movie. But yet in the movies, they cut out all of the mundane, boring, blah, blah, blah that you have to go through in order to become the hero who overcomes the obstacle. It doesn't just happen overnight. It takes this time. But I like what you were saying about the that statement that they say to themselves, is that's that philosophy that they embody, that that's their purpose, is to overcome, or they tell themselves that. And just like when we were reading the book What to Say When You Talk to Yourself by Shad Helmstetter, and how he talked a lot about, making sure that you're saying the things to yourself that are going to help you move your life, move yourself, move your attitude in the direction that you actually want to go in, versus saying the things to yourself that are going to cause you the upsetness about expectations that you have, about what your spouse does, about your job, about your boss, about life, about everything. Because if you're telling yourself positive things, then you're embracing this philosophy of positivity, of looking at the good things about whatever the situation is. And it's such a minor thing. I mean, it seems like such a minor thing of just choosing to say some specific words to yourself that are different than the words you've been saying to yourself. But I've noticed ever since we read that book, that anytime I come upon something that is, like you were saying, Karen, testing me, is I would look at the things that I'm saying to myself about that and change those so that I embody this new way of looking at it. It's like when at my work, we had a new manager that came on, and her way of managing kind of rubbed me a little bit the wrong way. And so I started really looking at what was it about what she was doing, what was I saying to myself about those things. And I realized that I was saying things along the lines of, she doesn't think I'm doing my job, or she doesn't think I'm this or that or whatever. She wasn't even saying things to me, but that was what I was saying to myself, is she doesn't think I'm this, or she doesn't think I'm that. And I do, and so then that was that attitude that I had. And when I realized that, I was like, oh, wait, I need to change that to something to the effect of, she just is a great person that likes to share what she thinks everybody should be doing. I do those things too. I mean, it was just the silliest little thing of switching the way that I was looking at what she was saying to recognizing that I do those things versus feeling accused of not doing them. And and I feel like that's such a huge thing. It's just changing your attitude takes the tiniest little effort. Just like it's like this whole book, this whole chapter talks about the tiniest little effort done over a long period of time creates the greatest results. And that if we just embrace the fact that we know these tiny little actions are going to create this great result in the future, and then we embody those tiny little actions. In the end of the chapter, it was saying, let's see, where was it in here? It was talking about, I'm in the wrong chapter. Hold on, let me find it. I underlined it, so it should be easy to find, hopefully. Okay, here it is. It says, the slight edge is all about living in the moment. It's about your awareness. It's about making the right choices, the choices that serve you and empower you, starting right now and continuing for the rest of your life, and learning to make them effortlessly. What feeds your patience and keeps you on the path is a philosophy. And remember, your philosophy is simply your view of how things are, and your philosophy that includes an understanding of the secret of time. Knowing the secret of time, you say, if I stay on this road long enough, I get the results I'm seeking. It's not a question of your mood or your feelings. It's not a question of willpower. It's a question of simply knowing. And I like that he was sitting here talking about, when you know and you live in the moment, with this moment, knowing that what you're doing right here is going to equal this out here, that's what he's talking. I don't know. That was what came up for me, is just remembering that in this moment, we make the choice right here and right now of whether or not we achieve this future thing. based on what we're doing right here. And if we know, we make the choice that goes along the path of knowing, then we are guaranteed a success in that.
Yeah, that reminds me of a seminar I was at last weekend. They were talking about, like, we can set these future possibilities that so that we're, say I want to be this in the future or whatever, then we embody, that's my word of the day. We can become that in the present, or take the actions that will make us become that or get there. And I don't know if I'm saying that in the clearest way, but and then when you were talking about obstacles and like Catherine, and like these, by the way, congratulations on your move. And these little efforts, that we compound. I was thinking about, babies and children, like they never give up, when they're wanting to do something. Like, I think when we first walking, like, a baby just keeps falling, and then gets back up until they're successful. Like, there doesn't not go through that process. So we're all can see that we can take those little steps to get to, okay, I'm going to walk like that, like my mommy and daddy, and we keep taking the actions every day to get there. And I'm thinking of little things like where, watching me and my brother, like, we just do silly things all day, but we would have a lot of the times like a goal, like, I'm going to race my bike to the bottom of the hill. And we wouldn't give up until we got over the fear of it, or not stop on the way. We actually completed it. And it could take like hours and hours and all day, or mom rings the dinner bell or something. But I think that essence of not giving up and just keep trying is so strong, especially if they're encouraged to be like that. I mean, I think naturally children are like that, but it's suppressed a lot now, unfortunately, with medications or not letting children go outside or whatever it is nowadays. But I think naturally we harnessed when we're young to take that into adulthood, because a lot of us now, I know when I went into adulthood, I was afraid of everything. Like, and that spirit of like, I'm going to get through every obstacle. I'm going to get up and walk through everything was sort of gone. And I had rebuild it in myself again through things like this, like good books and good friends. So.
Yeah, I was going to say this week, Samantha, you talked about the book that, what you say to yourself that we did a long while back now. I found myself a couple times this week kind of going back to that, and I don't do that very often. That's something I need to work on more, because a lot of what it said in the book was just great and helpful and stuff like that. And it's, again, going back, I'm going to use today, embody it and get it, and that's now my word of the day. I'm going to be thinking about that all day today, thinking, how can I embody this? How can I get it, into me? But with some situations, and I really, yesterday was in a kind of negative during the day, and it then in the afternoon it kind of cleared off a little bit, and then I came home and something happened, but I had to kind of, yesterday I kind of had to push myself, and I actually stopped at one point and said, if I just change a little bit and just change it and look more to a more positive side and get off that negative, it will get me back on to where I want to be. And I just need to focus on that. And I think as I kind of started working there, as I said, later on, it came out of that, and, other things took over my mind, and I got rid of that. And then, like I said, last night, it kind of hit me again a little bit. And I think that's just because of when I perceive something or how somebody else might react or something. And it's like you said, Samantha, they may have done nothing, or they may be being just their normal self. And I know they're being their normal self, and it's just how I perceive it. And in turn, how dare, and going, oh, okay, they're just being themselves today. Let me take that for what it's worth and just keep moving forward. And I think that's, something I need to get better at, so that way I can continue to move forward. And because I haven't quit, but I, like anybody else, I have those dips and I have those valleys where I get way down here and I have to slowly climb myself back up. And that's, I think it starts to become easier and faster. We recover faster. We embody some of those things of, what are we saying? What are we telling ourselves? What are we going over in our head? And how do we perceive it? And how do we, things like that. So I think that's, something that really, you know, is powerful. And the more people do that and use that, they can see that they can get back to that childlike enthusiasm and desire and I'm gonna just kill it no matter what. you know I'm not gonna let this fear override or take me over. And I think that's something really powerful.
Hey, Chris, welcome. So I'm guessing you want to add something to the conversation since you jumped on here, so you can.
Not particularly. You guys, I'm enjoying it. I'm learning from you. I appreciate it. Thanks for letting me drop in. Good to be here.
Well, you're looking mighty good. I've been thinking of some of the things. At some point, Samantha spoke the word feel, and I know she was just using it in her conversation, but to me it had a little flag on it. And then as Sandy has been mentioning over several times about embodying, have to change our thoughts, and that's something that's really important to learn how to do. But I think too, it can be important to learn how to change our feelings. For example, I sit slumped behind a steering wheel of a car that's not the prettiest car in the lot. I notice that somebody walking, 2 or 3 rows, who's listening to that whoop whoop of the security, finally about 3 rows away stops and turns around like, geez, you do something about that. And I didn't really feel this way because of all the thoughts that were going on in my mind and so forth. But often I will feel like slumping and kind of shrinking up inside myself and wanting to disappear. And I have noticed that Tony Robbins does, one of his missions is to help people understand. He called a name that I'm not even going to be able to think of just because I'm on this little route that's not going to let me detour. But he talks about how you cannot feel depressed if you stand up, if you do some certain and different things like that. In other words, if your physiology is such that it doesn't fit the feeling or the emotion of depression, then that changes. And that was really valuable to me to realize, because I have a lot of months of depression that I can consider and think about how does that seem, how does that look, how does that feel, that I can do something different about. And so we can change our thoughts, we can change our feelings, and those things can change our actions, and that's what we really need to be able to do.
Oh, we're almost at the top of the hour, guys. Does everybody want to just share a final thought before we wrap up for today?
Yeah, I'll go first really quick because I was already getting ready to point something out from in the book I'm reading, and it is from chapter 5, talking about the quantum leap myth. It kind of applies here. It says, no success is immediate, nor is any failure instantaneous. They are both products of the slight edge, meaning just constantly working and growing and going, doing those little things that help get you to where you want to get. But I think they're right. you never hear of anybody who instantly failed. They tried doing things and then they failed at doing that, like Thomas Edison with the light bulb. He had 10,000 tries before he finally got it right. But so that definitely instantaneous. Michael Jordan and some of the sports figures and business entrepreneurs and you know um, Dale Carnegie and people like that tried probably various different ventures, different things that they thought would work. They failed, but they didn't stop doing those little things that got them to where looking for the right people or getting the right things in place to finally ultimately be that success. And then again, the ultimate success didn't happen overnight because of all the many failures through, so they could figure out the right steps to take to be that success. So they go hand in hand, I think, and you have to have both, but you can't let both override your life to where it makes you not connection steps. Because once you are a success, you want to stay a success. So then you still have to continue to do those things and find new ways of adding to the current success so that you always stay a success, and you'll have failures then. So it's a big constant cycle that definitely goes hand in hand, but it doesn't have to rule your thought processes um, and keep you where you're at.
Well, I wanted to bring out a few things. Most importantly, I think, was, Samantha, what you brought up about, well, both you and Karen have touched on it, and Dan a little bit too. Changing your thoughts is huge, because changing your thoughts will change your feelings, because it's your thoughts about a situation that causes your feelings. So if you can change your thought, first of all, you have to learn to recognize your thoughts, though. That was the huge thing, is that you realize it wasn't what the woman was doing. It was your thoughts. She wasn't telling you that you didn't know what you were doing or anything like that. It was your thoughts that were telling you that. And that is what makes people miserable. Now, to me, I haven't experienced depression to the depths that you have, Karen. But I've experienced it enough to know that it feels like this. Like, it feels like curling up in a ball and just making everything go away. If you even have the strength to curl up in the ball, right? So I hadn't heard that, although it doesn't surprise me to hear that. That might come from Tony Robbins. It reminds me of something that Abraham teaches, which is that each feeling, emotion, thought, everything has its own vibration. And so depressed is actually like way, 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 way down close to death, believe it or not, on the energetic scale. And really, when you're depressed, you're kind of hoping for death. So that makes sense, right? So you can't go on an energetic scale. It's a scale. It's like, it's numbers, actual numbers. And you can't go from death to joy like that. Most people can't. And some people can, I've pulled it off a few times. But if you're really, really depressed, you can't just go to joy. Like, you have to go up in increments. Like, you have to think a thought. And this is why it hooks back to what Samantha was saying about changing your thoughts. You have to think a thought that makes you feel a little bit better, just a little bit, and if that is, like Tony Robbins suggests, standing up and just getting out of that fetal position, if that's the first step, just thinking the thought, I need to stand up and get out of the depressed fetal position, then that's the first step. And then that will get you that little bitty bit higher. And then you can think another thought that gets you a little bitty bit higher and a little bitty bit higher. And not believing, learning to think the right thoughts and learning not to believe the thoughts that you think that aren't helpful. And we all have them. I mean, I have tons of them, believe me. I just tell it to shut up. I'm like, shut up. I'm not listening to that. Like, I don't know who that is. I don't know if it's a little Flintstone angel devil shit going on. I don't know, but I just say, shut up. I don't want to hear it. And I can overcome any obstacle. That's like my new mantra, you know. And what else was I going to bring up? I actually had 3 thoughts. I don't know, but that was the most important one. That's why I brought it up first anyway, because I knew I'd probably forget the other 2. But if I think about them, I'll write them down. I didn't have my paper here. But it's been a lovely conversation. As always, thank you guys. Even though some people read, some people didn't read, we didn't know what chapter we were talking about, it still came off really good. So thanks a lot, guys. Have a great week.
Yeah, the time flew by even though we didn't know what we were doing in the beginning. We always find something good to talk about. But yeah, I've listened to Abraham Hicks stuff for just changing the thought, and it reminded me of one audio I listened to, and I know someone else has done this scale. I forget his name. He had a whole seminar on that scale of the different frequencies of emotion. But one Abraham I listened to that I saw is how I function well is that, like you say, depression is way on the bottom like death, and then there's a spot that's higher is the anger spot, and that gets you closer to joy. And I find that helps me because a lot of times when there's depressed, there's anger underlying it. There's something that made me angry that got me in that depressed state usually. And if I emote that anger, whether it's screaming into my pillow or beating my bed or whatever, that works for me. And really amazing, just screaming and beating things. It helps me get out of that depression. It may come back and fluctuate a little bit, but then it gets me closer to being able to like move forward. That anger is like a motive that can help bring you, okay, yeah, like I'm ready to get out of this slump. And, so that reminded me of that. And yeah, changing the thoughts, of course, and how we make meaning for everything. Like when you were speaking, thinking how you kept saying how things keep being a lesson for you, and that creates a meaning that everything that's maybe is a lesson. I don't know if I'm going to say this in a clear way. Trying to find the words. Like looking at things that come up as a challenge rather than maybe rewording that. Like maybe the lesson thing makes it seem harder maybe to you, or I'm just making suggestions because I know when I see something as a lesson, it makes it feel like more. But if I look at it as, oh, this is a growth opportunity and I'm going to come out on the other side brighter and shiny, and that changing that wording I've found has helped me because that lesson thing sounds heavy to me, but seeing the light on the other side, okay, I can go through this. There's something better on the other side. So just thought I'd throw that out there. And good to see you all, and it was a great conversation.
I think sometimes, now this is just my personal opinion of that the kind of philosophy of it being a lesson is that sometimes it almost feels like a punishment, or maybe we tell ourselves we're being punished for whatever we didn't do or did do or blah, 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 or whatever. And we keep getting the same punishment, if you will. But if we change what we're saying, even changing it from punishment to a lesson is a better euphemism. But again, to a growth opportunity, then, or just a moment to recognize what we're saying to ourselves about whatever's happening. That part of it too. Oh, I want to make two things. One is last week Karen mentioned about the Kaizen Act. Doing a Kaizen Act. How do you pronounce that, Karen? Kaizen? I don't know. It was a reference to a Chinese visit for doing one simple thing new each day and adding that to your, your daily routine so that you create a big change in your life. And it's just one little simple thing. And I want to challenge everybody to recognize some way that they're thinking about something that is making them feel less than great, whatever that is, and then just change your thought about it. And so I feel like that could be maybe our Kaizen act for this week. Is just to recognize a thought creating discomfort and then change it into a thought that creates comfort. I'm gonna go with that. Okay.
You have to remember.
And then the other thing. Oh, you want to jump out? Jump out. What was that?
I don't want you to lose your thought, but you help me remember one of the things that I'm going to add before we end.
Go ahead and say it real quick, because I can. My other thing is just is sort of relevant, but not to the conversation.
Okay, I just wanted to say it might be a good exercise this week if we all think back, because Sandy, what you said, when you're a child, you never quit. So I want everybody, well, you don't have to, but I'm going to think back. When did I learn to quit? When did I learn to quit? I'm going to think back of in my life when I already sort of know it already, but it might be something interesting. Just to think back, when did you learn to quit? What were the circumstances, and how do you still use that, even though you're decades older, as an excuse? What are the tendencies there?
That's a good one. And then I saw in the chat where you mentioned calling the things speed bumps versus lessons or whatever. I think that's a great idea too. Like you were saying, it slows you down, but you get over it. I love that. So the only other thing I was going to mention is that since you guys were talking about the Abraham Hicks scale of emotional vibrations, maybe if you have a video that you remember watching, you could share that in our Mindset Mastery Collective group. That would be great. But yeah, that's we had a great chat today. We've gone over a little bit. So for those of you who are watching this as a recording, there'll be a link below this video where you can join us in our Facebook, or the short version of getting there is mindsetmasterycollective.com. That's just a quick link. Or you can search for Mindset Mastery Collective in Facebook, and you should be able to find us there as well. Share your thoughts about this video in the comments below, or jump in and tell us what you think. But other than that, everybody have an awesome, amazing weekend, and we will see you next week on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye for now.